Caitlyn Laux and I worked with Dr. Francovello in the Health and Sciences Department to see if positive psychology can help tackle bullying. So I'm just going to start with a short video.
I tell you about coming back here. Did you hear me, nerd? Give me a line. Watch yourself, punk. Everyone in this room wants you to die. School just ended. Why are you leaving so early? Oh, what's the matter? Is pretty boy sad? Why don't you just go home? Never come back. The school is for people who actually have a brain. We don't need you. You're just wasting space.
So although bullying doesn't always end like it does in the video, people that are bullied are often left with very harmful psychological effects. Bullying has become much more publicized in the past, but with this new attention, the term bully has actually become bullied. In my research, I found that there are 3 things that need to happen for something to be classified as bullying. The first is a power imbalance. So a stronger power has to be attacking a weaker power. The second is a repeated occurrence. So it can't just be a one-time event. Now, these one-time events can be just as harmful and can turn into bullying. It's just that situation itself isn't considered bullying. And the third one is intentionality. It has to be directly at someone specific. It can't just be something random, like on the street, you're having a bad day and you are mean to someone. Now, fighting is not bullying. Not to say that fighting and other situations like this aren't just as awful as bullying is. They're just not classified as bullying. There have been websites here at Marymount that promote gossip and insults directly towards people. So that's kind of what sparked my interest and why I wanted to implement the project that I'm doing. So think to yourself what this is a picture of. If you said a duck, you're correct. If you said a rabbit, you're also correct. Even if you saw both animals originally, I bet you saw one first. This picture is all about perspective. Positive psychology is all about perspective. It's how you think about things, and how you approach life. The main idea is to focus on your personal strengths and how to manage your weaknesses. It also emphasizes approaching life with a more positive outlook, which can result in better behaviors, positive actions, and a more overall happier lifestyle. It's a relatively new psychological perspective, but it does show a lot of promise, which is really exciting. There was a study done by Richard Andrews where he implemented a 9-week positive psychology program where he created lesson plans and guidelines to give to teachers that teach health in elementary or middle schools and high schools. And what he did is he picked 2 schools and gave these 2 different schools the plan that he had made, and then one as a control in the same area, so he didn't jump out of the area. What he found was that the students with a positive psychology education actually did have increased health, increased family life, and more overall positive feelings. This suggests that positive psychology can be a useful tool in combating bullying, and I would be really interested to look at the different levels that it can be at instead of just these grade schools. Social media has been used productively and positively, but it's more often been used as a wall to hide behind for people to attack each other. Now, college students were in the thick of it, and people tend to think that bullying is more grade school and you kind of get out of it and then it's not really there anymore, but I'm more arguing that it's not. We're still just as much targeted as anyone else. I mean, as college students, you're trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do with your life. You're creating all these personal relationships, and I think that you're just as vulnerable. So what I did is I created a Twitter site called MU Compliments, and the way that it's set up is it takes submissions through email, through direct message, which is just messaging this account if you have a Twitter account, and then also through an individual site called ask.fm. So for those of you who don't know what ask.fm is, because it's kind of a relatively new thing, it's where you create an account and people with or without an account can go and post things for me to look at. And the best thing about all of these three ways of submission is none of them are made public until I've reviewed them. So people can't just come and post something, you know, rude, hurtful, or mean, and it's very easy for me to filter what goes onto the site. So before I continue, I know there's varying knowledges with social media, so if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to ask. So the creation of the Twitter site was not as easy as it might have seemed. I didn't just create the Twitter site and I was done with it. I did create the Twitter site, and then I also worked with a lot of Marymount staff to try to get the word out there and see if they could help and what I could do to move forward with not just my level, but all the levels. I went through the ILB approval process and developed my survey and informed consent, disseminated the survey for collection, and analyzed the data with SPSS. So with collaborative efforts, I worked with a lot of these Marymount areas to try to get the word out there more, because obviously I'm just one student. And I mean, I do have friends and they have friends and stuff, but it's a little bit harder than that. So I worked with the Director for Integrated Technology Solutions, the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs, the Director of Training and Organizational Development, and that's in the Human Resources Department, and the Director for Student Development, and the Vice President for Student Affairs. So my demographics were pretty representative of the Marymount community, which I was happy about. It was, as you can see, there were mostly female, or slightly more females than males. It was the general age range that you would expect college students to be in. I did have the majority of people had been at Marymount for 1 to 3 years, so I didn't really get older than that. And the ethnicities were pretty widely ranged too. So the questions, my non-demographic questions that I asked were, have you heard of MU Compliments? Would you be interested in submitting? Would you be interested in following? Do you think that it can make an impact? Do you think that it can tackle bullying? And do you think that it can grow? And if you notice, the first question is dichotomous, and then the rest I used the Likert scale from 1 to 5, 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. I do want to point out, before I get into the discussion, that I was really happy that the majority of people had heard about MU Compliments, which I was surprised about, so I was really excited about that. And also, Cronbach's alpha was 0.83, which non-psychology people, that means that the items in the scale in the survey that I developed measured what I wanted them to measure, which was awesome. So a lot of the correlations that I wanted to point out, there were a lot of correlations within the questions, but the ones that I wanted to point out, the ones that related to demographics, were that more residents typically had heard of the site, and that the students in the earlier years of college were more likely to think that the site could grow. There were a lot of correlations within the non-demographic questions. For example, if the student was interested in submitting, they would be more interested in the other 4 Likert scale questions, so following, the impact, tackle, bullying, and growing. And there were many other correlations like this, like I said, and they tended to follow this positive pattern. So overall, the response to the account was positive, which I was really happy about. 55% had heard of MU Compliments. 60% were interested in following the account. 63% believed that the account could tackle bullying. 77% agreed that the account could make an impact, and 78% believed that the account could grow. So for the future, I plan on continuing this site. I don't plan on just doing it for this student research conference. I plan on keeping it running, hopefully keep getting submissions, and I have been working to get the site linked to the Marymount webpage, and since this was just a 1 semester thing for me, I wasn't able to get it linked now, but it should be relatively soon, which I'm really happy about. And then I'm also looking to the possible publication of this kind of thing, since it is relatively new and there's not a whole lot out there, and just how it can improve. because I did learn a lot about how I can improve getting the word out there and that kind of thing. So I'm very pleased with the positive response, and I've learned a lot about what I can improve in the future. So thank you all for your time, and I hope you go check it out.
Thank you very much.